Okay, this is a little tutorial about finding quartiles. That means finding the median, which is the first one we'll look at, and then finding the halfway mark of the bottom half of the data, which is the first quartile, and the halfway mark of the top half of the data, which is the third quartile. Now, in this first example, I've given you some numbers. It's a fairly straightforward one. I'm just going to find the median. I know that I've got 7 numbers here. I can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, I've got 7 pieces of data, 7 values. So it's pretty easy for me to just look at this and know that that is the middle, so my median is going to be 6. Now what I'm going to do, because this is how I'm going to do the rest of my examples, I'm going to show you what this looks like. If instead of using actual numbers, just to explain my method, 2, 3, 6, 7. I actually use dots, right? Same thing. I'm not going to come up with an actual answer, but I can see that when I've got 7 dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth one here is my median. Okay, on the next slide I'm going to show you 2 different situations that we often find. Okay, here are 2 different imaginary data sets. I haven't given you actual numbers. I'm just giving you dots, but you have to imagine that in place of those dots there are actual numbers. But it doesn't matter what the numbers are for our purposes right now. So, in the top example, as you've seen us do in class, we know that to find the median, we draw a line in the middle here. Because we've got an even number of values, we don't have an actual middle. So it's going to be the number in between the 4th and the 5th value. In my second example, I've got an odd number of values. I've got 9 values. So I will have an actual, one of the data set is going to be the median. Okay, now I want to show you a technique that I can use, because when I'm dealing with 8 or 9 or 10 numbers, this is nice and easy to do by eye. But if I had 100 or 101 or 135 numbers, I'm not going to have my string of numbers and I can easily by eye find the middle. So this is what I do. I go 8 plus 1 divided by 2. 8 plus 1 is 9, divided by 2 gives me 4.5. 9 plus 1 divided by 2. 9 plus 1 is 10, divided by 2 gives me 5. Now if you have a look, this is the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, etc. value. My 4.5 here tells me that I'm halfway between 4 and 5, and that's where my median value is going to be, halfway between the 4th and the 5th data value. In my odd number of values example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's my 5th value. It's not actually worth 5, I don't know what the number is, but it's the 5th one that is going to be my median. Okay, so that's a straightforward explanation of the difference between when I've got even or odd number of values for finding median. In the next example, I'm going to show you what you do in those 2 scenarios for finding your quartiles. Okay, let's start with even. I found my median, and it's the number in between the 4th and the 5th dot, because I've got 8 dots here. So I've already done my 8 plus 1 gives me 9, divided by 2 gives me 4.5. So it's between the 4th and the 5th dots. Now, what have I got left on either side? I've got 4 dots here and I've got 4 dots here. It's easy to know. Even if I had 1,000 dots, I know that in my bottom half I'll have 500 dots and in my top half I'll have 500 dots. Okay, so my method is very simple. Take my 8 and I divide it by 2 to give me 4. So now what I'm really doing is I'm finding the median of these 4 dots. There are 4 there. It's even. So that means I can use the same technique as I used before. 4 plus 1 gives me 5, divided by 2 gives me 2.5. That's in between the 2nd and the 3rd dot. That's right here. So that's going to be my Q1. And now I'm going to do the same for the top half of the data. I've got 4 dots, so in between the second and the third is going to be my Q3. Second and the third of the top of the data. Okay. All right, now, what if I had started with an odd number of dots? The tricky thing that some people don't know what to do with here is what happens to the middle dot. And there's no real reason for this other than the maths people, decided to make a rule so that everyone follows the same method, which is that we're not going to use the middle dot. So now I'm only going to use these 4 dots to find my lower quartile and these 4 dots to find my upper quartile. This wasn't a question when I had an even number of dots because it was really easy to cut the numbers in half. But how do I cut the numbers in half when there's an odd number? We don't use the middle one. Okay, so think about it. We already used that to find the median. We don't need to use that number again. And now my method will be the same. I'm going to have 3.5 there and 3.5 there in between the third and fourth dots. How did I know there were 4 dots? Okay, in this case I can see it by eye. But if I had 173 values in my data set, how do I know which of my values is going to be my lower quartile? How many dots are there in my lower half of the data and in my upper half? In the above example, I used 8 over 2, and in fact in this example it turns out to be the same, 8 over 2. I take 1 off the 9 because I'm not using the middle value, and then I divide it in half, and that gives me 4. If I had 173, I would take 1 off to get 172, and then cut that in half, which gives me, I don't know what, 80 something, 86 I think. Okay, so the 86 would be the number of dots that are in the lower half of the data and the number of dots that are in the upper half of the data. Now I'm going to show you some other examples. 2 more examples. In the first case, I have, again, an even number of dots. And in the second example, I have an odd number of dots. This time I've got 10 and 11. So let's find where my median will be and where my quartiles will be. In my first example, to find out where my median is, I just have to go 10 plus 1 over 2 is 11 over 2, 5.5. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In between the 5th and the 6th, that's where my median is going to be. Nice and easy. In this one, in the second example, 11 plus 1 over 2 is 12 over 2, which gives me 6. So that means I've got an actual value. There's no 6.5 or 5.5, 6. It's going to be the 6th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's my 6th value. That's my median. So we've just found median. Now let's go back to both those examples and find the quartiles. So how many dots have I got above and below my median? In this case, it's really easy because I've got an even number of data values in this set. I've got 10 data values. So there'll be 5 in the bottom half and 5 in the top half. So there are 5 here, I know that, and there are 5 here. But what's different from the previous example we did is we had 4 last time. We had an even number. Now we've got odd. So now we have to go back to the technique we use when we're finding median for an odd number of data values. I'm going to go 5 plus 1 over 2 is going to give me 6 over 2, which is 3. So it's going to be the third data set. Now just take care in my upper values, what I need to do, it's the third data set, but if I'm counting in order, I can either count 3 from the top, 1, 2, 3, count 3 down like that, sorry. Or what I can do is I can go, well, it's going to be after the 5th, it's going to be 3 more. So I add 3 to my 5 to give me 8, and it's the 8th one there. Either of those methods will work. Okay, I found my 2 quartiles in my first example on this page. All right, let's look at the second example. I found it's my 6th value. Remember that if I want to know how many numbers there's going to be in the bottom half of the data and how many there's going to be in the top half of the data, because I started with an odd number, I can't just go 11 divided by 2. So I'm going to take 1 away because I'm not going to use this middle value. So it's 10 divided by 2, which gives me 5. And I know, I can see that in this case, there are 5 on this side and 5 in the upper side. All right, so let's find my quartiles. The method is the same. 5 plus 1 gives me 6, divided by 2 gives me 3. So it's the third number. And again, the third number. Okay, so what I've given you are 4 examples just using dots of finding mean and median. Of finding median and then finding the quartiles in 4 different scenarios. In the first scenario, I had an even number of dots in the whole of my, and after I had cut my data into 2 halves, I had an even number in both the top and the bottom data set. In the second example, I started with odd in my whole data set, and then I had evens in each half. And in the examples that you're still looking at, I started with the first one with an even number, but once I cut it in half, I had odd numbers in both sides. And in my second example, I started with odd and I cut it in half and I had odd numbers in both sides. That's all the possibilities, okay? Right, let's do an actual example with some numbers. First thing I need to do is I need to know how many numbers do I have. So I count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, so I've got 13 numbers. If I add 1, I divide it by 2, that gives me 14 over 2 is 7. So I need the 7th number for my median. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my median is 9. That was easy. Okay, now I've got an odd number, so I'm no longer using that 9. So I'm now going to go 13 minus 1 over 2 to find out how many numbers there are on either side. That gives me 12 over 2, which is 6. I've got 6 numbers, which is even. That's nice and easy. So I'm going to do this in my head. I'm not going to write it down. 6 plus 1 is 7, divided by 2 is 3.5. So my quartiles will be between the third and fourth numbers. 1, 2, 3 in between third and fourth. So my Q1 is in between 7 and 8, 7.5. Okay, let's go to the top set. I'm going to count down. 1, 2, 3. There, in between third and fourth. In between 11 and 13, my Q3 is going to be 12. Okay, and now I'm going to do one more example with dots without actual numbers, but with larger numbers. Okay, just hold on a sec. So let's say I'm given a spreadsheet or something with 155 values, and I'm told to find the 5 summary statistics. Minimum and maximum is easy, the smallest value and the largest value. But what about the other 3? First of all, to find the median, I'm going to go 155 plus 1, which gives me 156, divided by 2 should be 70, 60. 78, and I have to tell you I cheated then by pausing and working it out. So that gives me 78. All right, so I know that the median is going to be the 78th value. I don't know what the number is. Okay, I'd have to actually look at the numbers. Now I need to find the upper and lower quartiles. Now I started with 155, so that's odd. So that means I'm not going to use the middle value. So I'm going to now go 155 minus 1 over 2, which is going to give me 154 over 2, which should give me 77. So I've got 77 numbers in my lower half and 77 numbers in my upper half. I've got to find the middle of these 77 numbers in my lower half. Alright, so let's do it. Same method applies. 77 plus 1 over 2. 77 plus 1 is 78, divided by 2 is... Okay, I was just interrupted, but we're finding, I think we're up to finding the lower quartile, that is Q1. So we've got 77 data values in the lower half, so we're adding 1 to get 78 and dividing by 2, which gives us 39. So that means that Q1 is going to be the 39th value. So this is the median here, 78th value, and this is Q1, the 39th value. Now, finding Q3, which value is it going to be? We just need to do some thinking about this. We've got 77 values in the bottom half, then we've got our median, and then after that we need to count 39. So that's going to bring us to 117, I think. The 117th value for Q3. So notice that what I'm really doing there in coming up with that value is I'm thinking about it as though they're dots. I'm thinking 77 in a row, then 1 in the middle, and then there's going to be 77 more. I need the 39th of those 77, which brings me in total to the 117th value will be Q3. And that's the end of this tutorial.